This is not another stream. This is the moment we show up. Real talk, real truth, real people, ready to ride. No filter, no fluff, just raw conversation that hits where it matters. Welcome to the revolution of you live. Let's go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit it! Hey, everybody.
I love that.
Did you?
Yeah.
It kind of gets me hyped. And
Yeah, it gets you going, doesn't it?
It's way better than before, because before it would just go live and I was like, oh, yeah. But at least, we get the countdown. We get a little bit of like an upbeat type of music. Hey, everybody. My name is...
Puts you in the mood.
Yeah, it does. My name is William Rochelle, but you can call me Bill. You are on UBU Live. And I am with LYNNAIRE Johnson. And LYNNAIRE Johnson has quickly gone from a network connection to a friend. And she is the owner of LINKABILITY.BIZ. And she is what I call the LinkedIn Whisperer. So last week, there's a private group, LINKABILITY group, or actually, I keep forgetting I was on vacation, a few weeks ago. And I posed the question to LYNNAIRE. I said, hey, is LinkedIn still viable? And does it work? Or is it just not working for me? And that's a real question, because I wonder, it does work, but am I using it wrong? And I have a few questions for LYNNAIRE. One, we've talked about before, LYNNAIRE, which was the easy apply button, which you were absolutely right about, because when I didn't do the easy apply and I did use the regular apply, it worked. I actually got a contact. But the question really is, with as fast as AI and automation are changing things, do you ever think LinkedIn needs a total reinvention?
The $60 million or $1 billion question, really, Bill. Absolutely. I would say, and I think a lot of my colleagues would agree with you, that LinkedIn certainly has its challenges. It is very glitchy. They bolt on new features without regard to what's already there and the effects that it's going to have. And they try out new things, and we're the guinea pigs. So I would say that, yes, it would be long overdue. It's over 20 years old now, long overdue for a major overhaul. But can I see that happening? No, I don't see that happening. Really.
Why not?
Because I think that it would be just too expensive, too time-consuming, and too risky, given the structures that they've already got in place. Because you're talking about a complete and overall revamp that would affect more than 1 billion users. And they might play some games with the way it looks and the way that we might use it on various features. They'll take things, put things in and take things out with great abandon. But will I see a major overhaul? No, I simply don't think they have got the money or the wherewithal, or even potentially the permission from Microsoft to do it.
And for those of you that don't know, LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Yes, have been since 2017. So
I would think that they would have all the power to do whatever they wanted. If you were LYNNAIRE Johnson, were to take LINKABILITY and turn it into the new LinkedIn and reinvented this from scratch today, what would be the first thing that you would do?
I would structure it so that you didn't have people working in silos, so that there was communication between the different departments or divisions or whatever they call them at LinkedIn, so that one hand does know what the other's doing. Because I was listening to Kevin Turner talk about this recently, and what he's saying is that somebody, say in the company page department or division, might decide on a brand new feature and put it up, make it live, but then somebody else might go in another division, might go, oh, we want to do something else, and so they'll take that down and put the new one in without talking to that department. And that's probably a major generalization about what really goes on. But you get the point that there are different silos, and I think that lack of internal communication is a major problem. The same problem exists with communication with members. You have a problem on LinkedIn, you've got something that's not working, you get thrown into LinkedIn jail. Trying to get anybody's attention is difficult. It is easier than on Facebook if you happen to lose your account there, where it's no communication, but it could well be better. There's a lot of complaints about that from people who are using the help service.
But the difference between Facebook is that both you and I pay for LinkedIn.
Yes.
So as a paid subscriber, you would think that you would get some level of service. However, however, this is not a LinkedIn bash session. This is for us, for the people like me, guys, people like you, to really, really hear from LYNNAIRE things that we can do better. Because all of us, I want you to get the job of your dreams, sir, ma'am, them, they, whatever. I want to get the job of my dreams. And, I believe that being on LinkedIn since the inception, my way of doing things may be outdated. So let's hear from LYNNAIRE.
All right. I think it's fair to say that things have changed on LinkedIn over the past 2 to 3 years at a macro and a micro level. So at the macro level, we've got the arrival of AI and massive changes to the algorithm, which means that our reach on our posts is not nearly as high as it was. You might get the same number of views on a week's worth of posts as you would have had at one time on one post. So that's a problem. But the second thing is that how we're looking at LinkedIn has changed. So for a very long time, Bill, you could get great visibility on LinkedIn simply by putting up content, by posting, by putting up your articles, your newsletters, and your video posts, all of those kind of things. That is no longer the case. And so we need, as LinkedIn users, to be working with what we have got available at our fingertips that is working, and to just sideline or pay less attention to the things that are not. And so the things that are not are content. And so I'm not suggesting that people don't put up content, but I think that they should be having a look at how that content works. So for a very long time, social media companies have trained us to believe that organic reach, that's views and impressions, was the holy grail, but it's not. That is not where business is done. Business is done as, the development of yours and my relationship into a friendship, and through relationships, through building your network with people who know, like, and trust you. And so it's finding ways to do that in the good old-fashioned way that we did when we were going to networking meetings, or if you're still going to networking meetings, that we built those relationships there. So it requires a completely different mindset and putting aside all of those preconceptions about what LinkedIn can do. Now, it's fair to say that what your objective is on LinkedIn will depend on where you are currently sitting. For example, if you're looking for a job, you'll be doing one set of activities. And if you are a business owner, then you'll be doing another, because clearly you want to be doing the things that are going to get you to where you want to go. So I think it's really important to be very clear about that from the outset. And from there, you can start to build a strategy that is going to work for you. But I do want to make it clear, Bill, that LinkedIn is a long game. You said you've been on LinkedIn since the beginning. I've been here since 2008. And a lot of people, I think, these days want quick wins. I understand that, but that is not how LinkedIn performs best. It's slow and steady wins the race on LinkedIn.
Okay. I did a poll. It's only gotten 4 votes so far because it was a last minute poll. But 25%, one person said finding candidates is what they use it for. 25%, another one said consulting, getting clients. And then the other 50%, so 2, said sales and prospecting leads. Nobody said I'm a candidate job hunting yet. But the poll just went up 30 minutes ago. And what are your thoughts on that, though?
I think that if you'd put the poll up last week, we'd have some really good results to be able to talk about. They had a few more votes. And so your point about last minute, I'm just going to pick up on that because I think that that's what a lot of us tend to do, Bill, and I don't know about you, but I'm quite a reactive person. I like to think it's responsive rather than reactive, but there you go. It's all the terminology, isn't it? And so what I tend to do is I react to situations and I'll put up something that might not necessarily have been clearly thought through or sufficiently thought through, and so I don't get the results from it that I might wish. And so an example is how far in advance of an event you get the event live, how far in advance of wanting to know the results of a poll do you put that up. But the point is really that you probably only thought about it doing that a few minutes before you did. And so it kind of takes a mind shift to go, that's a great idea, but I want to make sure that it's going to work, so I'll put that up next week for the next time we do this, or whatever it might be. So I think that being more strategic with what you're doing on LinkedIn, which I define as just thinking it through. I think it's a fancy word really, just for thinking things through and deciding what's going to work for you and what's going to help you and what is not, is a really good idea. But I do think that you're right, and that probably I think that poll, even though it's only got 4 votes, does give you a pretty good snapshot of what's going on LinkedIn. You've got a whole bunch of people looking for jobs, a whole bunch of people wanting to bring a new business and a whole lot of other people who are doing sales and prospecting. And those are the people that I think are going to are finding it probably more difficult right now because they because we've got whys, Bill, you and I and others like us, so that when somebody reaches out to connect with us, I don't know about you, but I take a jolly good look at their profile. And if I think they're someone I want in my network, happy to have them. If it's somebody I think is only there to sell to me, I'm not happy to have them. They can follow me, no problem with that, but I don't want to particularly be connected. And so I think that we just need to understand how things have changed in that area, and that people are becoming more discerning about who they allow into their networks. And that's a good thing. But it means then that we need to be the person that they allow in when we approach them. And
Right.
I've been saying this for a long time, that writing a personalized message when you reach out to somebody is about an 80% guarantee that they'll say yes. If they don't know you from Adam, or Eve, then if you can give them a reason to connect, they are more likely to do so. But if they don't know you, got no connection with you, and you don't bother to send a message, there's no incentive for them to connect with you, particularly if they suspect you want to sell to them. So that first impression, I think, really counts. And you and I are paid members, so we can send those personalized messages. People who are on the free account can only send a few every month, which is a shame because LinkedIn's a networking platform. And this is what I meant earlier when I said that LinkedIn gives with one hand and takes away with the other. Up until last year, you could send free personalized messages on free accounts. It's not nearly so easy now.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you said that, because even with the live events, Felipe Cofino, whenever he asks, "Can I join?" he always sends a message, and I don't know if it's personalized or not, but it basically says, "Hey, I would love for you to attend," and it gets my attention so much better than just an invite.
Oh, absolutely. And we find the same. If you're just sending out the default invites, and those are the ones that sit up in the top in the messaging, sorry, not in the messaging, in the My Network part of your LinkedIn, you're more likely just to go ignore. But if Felipe sends you a hi Bill message, first of all, he knows you're Bill and not William.
Right?
And secondly, he can tell you what the event's about. You are much more likely to show up.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
But
Every
it's
time he does it.
wow, it's very time consuming. So good, good work for Felipe and his team, because that definitely takes time to do, but it's much more successful.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So you mentioned career
Mm,
and job syncing and networking.
mhm.
Let's talk about career pivots. So
Okay.
can you walk us through how someone can turn unrelated experience into a compelling narrative for recruiters?
Oh, I love this question. It's one of my favorites because a lot of people come to me with exactly the same problem. They might have had a full-time job and want to move into something else, but they also want to do some consulting, or they want to be on a board of directors, or they're doing some volunteer work that is having an impact in their community. So how do you put all that together in one LinkedIn profile? Well, there are some difficulties, but there are also some solutions. So the difficulty is that LinkedIn, when you look at somebody's profile, it's linear. Starts at the top, works its way down. And that's what we read. We read things generally in order, although I think people do scroll to the bottom to look at recommendations, but that's beside the point. People will look down through it. And so when you are wanting to to add different things that might be competitive, if you might, in terms of what we're talking about, then you have to make sure that you pull it together from the start. So from your banner, from your headline, from your about section, all of that needs to tell a compelling story. Now, I found, and I never thought I would hear myself saying these words, I found that if your AI is well trained, then you can ask it to put together quite a reasonable about section. Now, you've got to give it some good instructions because it'll try to truncate it just like the internal AI does on LinkedIn. So you want it to be able to use all 2,600 characters and make it narrative and bullet points so that you can weave into your professional story these different elements. Because if somebody is serious about doing work with you, the one thing they're going to look at is your about section. The rest of it they might scan, but they will read that. So that's the area where you need to pull everything together and explain your career journey, because most of us don't have a linear career journey. We've done this and gone out there and come back to it again and moved in a different direction. We've done a lot of different things, which gives us a lot of different skills, and people see this as a negative, and I don't. I see this as really positive. If you've done different things in your life, but they've got a common thread, like for me, I'm a writer. Whatever I've done in my life has pretty much always involved writing. And if I can pull it together in a narrative that explains how I've got to here from where I started, then that makes a compelling story. It's almost like you're sitting down and talking to somebody, Bill. You and I were sitting and having a coffee, and I said, Bill, tell me about your life, your business life. It's what you would tell me. Oh, I went and did this, and then I did that, and that led me to something else. And then I got this opportunity. I couldn't turn it down, even though it was very different. You pull all of those together in a story. And storytelling has become so much more important on LinkedIn of recent times. We all love a story. We all love to hear about somebody else's particular professional story. We want it warts and all. We want the things that went wrong, all of the terrible disasters and catastrophes, and how the person got out of that and moved forward, which is the real lesson, isn't it? And so I think it's really important to get that about section right. Now, I'm a professional LinkedIn profile writer, and I know that this is not an easy task. And you need to, if you're going to use AI to do this, because it's very hard to write about yourself, you do need to work at it. The first result it gives you will not be what you want on your profile. You will have to go back to it and say, no, that's not right. I don't like the wording of that. This makes me sound too generic. I don't sound like myself. Go through all of those processes that you do with your AI when you're asking it for help on something that's going to have your name on it.
Right.
Then you do need, I think, to make sure that you are happy with it. Have someone else look at it that knows you and see what they think about it before you put it up. But the other thing I wanted to mention about this that I think might help people is that in our experience section, it's a really good place to be able to put under one banner different roles. So say you've been consulting for a bunch of different companies and you're actually working in the company, but the overarching component of it or the role was to be a consultant. If you put your the header on it as consultant and under your own name, so William Rochelle Inc., and then you put the different companies that you were consulting for in the different situations and the different roles, because you give them different titles, then that shows people the different things that you do. So I do this in terms of services. So at the top of my experience, I've got Linkability, which is my company name. Underneath that, I've got the first role I've got is that I'm the founder of LINKABILITY.BIZ, and that's my private members group. Underneath that, I've got LinkedIn profile writer. Underneath that, I'm getting lost. I've got so many of these, I can't remember. I think I've got author, and then I've got content creator. I've got about 7 or 8 different roles underneath the one Linkability name. So if you are working for yourself, that is a really good way to show the different services that you offer. Now, it's a little more tricky if you are working full-time for a company, because even though your LinkedIn profile is owned by you, not your company, you may have some constraints about what you can do with it. And so it's advisable to talk to the HR department or comms or whoever's in charge of it at your company, just to see what you can and you can't do. But overall, it's important to remember that it is your profile and does not belong to the company. Now, that's just a bit of an overview of how that works. And if you want to see that, looking at my profile will give you an idea of how I do that on mine.
So I have a question with that. Actually,
Sure.
I have 5 questions.
Five
You guys,
Well, you're being greedy.
you
today.
guys, I can't talk to LYNNAIRE without having a billion questions. So I'm going to do it in order. First, warts and all. I am a firm believer that your story needs to be told transparently.
Yes.
I don't know if I would include that in the About Me section. Are we in agreement with that?
Yes, I think that's probably would be too detailed and possibly too negative, and
Yeah.
it might need context, right? So yes,
Yep.
in the experience section would be a better place for that.
Right. So I would share that in an interview, like, because you can say the warts, guys, are what made you who you are today. And if you're smart, like Chris Cadet and LYNNAIRE and I, we are forever learners. So you've learned from those, though I'm not going to say any experience was bad. You've learned from that experience. You know what went wrong. So now you know what to do right. So I would not put that on LinkedIn personally, but I would share it in my interview.
And that's a good thing to do. I think that's a very good approach.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm going to ask you is, I did a consulting gig for a seminar company. would I name the seminar company, or would I say I consulted for a seminar company?
Which one do you think people would find the most believable?
If I name them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no reason why you don't need permission for that to say that you worked at somewhere. You need permission if you're going to share publicly testimonials from someone at the company, but to say that you worked at the company is fact. So you
Okay.
don't need permission for that.
Got it. Got it. Because normally I keep it what I did, not necessarily the company name.
No,
So
I
I
think you
will.
should share the company name. Absolutely. Definitely.
Okay. I will definitely do that. The other part that, Linaire gives me all of these tips, and I did so much, I normally forget some of them. So one tip that she gave me was to make sure that you have the logo of the company on your LinkedIn page. So I have that. But I have not added content creator or podcaster, which she keeps telling me. And she's told me more than once. So, I'm learning. I'm going to do that today. The other question I had about the warts and all, the consulting piece, and let's just stop there because my mind is sometimes I forget things. So there's
Really?
two of the five that I had for you, and the other three will come up as you keep talking.
Well, I'm glad it's not just me that does that. My trick, Bill, is to keep talking until I remember what it was I was going to say or
But you know
ask.
what? You know me. We can talk for over an hour. So I will not keep talking. I will let you. But what's the difference between posting content to build authority versus content that drives sales? And can you do both? And I'll ask that question because in my podcast, I don't sell anything.
No.
And in my content, I'm never selling anything. But I'm giving a platform for others that want to promote their businesses and
Might be selling something. Yeah.
that might be selling something.
Absolutely. I do think that it's possible to do both. Whether it's possible to do both in the same piece of content is a bit debatable. Although I would argue that if you are, for example, doing a video that is about, say, 5 tips for something, in my case, LinkedIn, then at the end, it's perfectly acceptable to put in a call to action that says, pop over to my Linkability site and have a look, where you can have a look around free for 7 days and become a member if you want to, and put in a call to action that does elicit some sort of, action from people. You certainly can definitely do that. But by and large, Bill, most people don't want to read content that's sales related, which is
Right.
part of the reason that company page content does not get views, because nobody wants to be sold to by a company. And the best kind of content for company pages is people stories about the staff, the team members, what the company is doing in the community, all those kind of really positive things, rather than how fantastic their product or service is. And so it's really important, I think, to kind of not conflate the two. And if you want to be seen as a thought leader, then you're going to need to be writing content that definitely is not sales, because you want to be seen as the go-to person in your industry. So it's really important to focus on that and sharing those ideas. Now, when you are writing a post, you have only 3,000 characters in a post. That's the maximum character count that you can have. And that doesn't really help a lot if you are trying to develop a reputation as a thought leader. But in articles and newsletters, there's no limit like that. So you can really go to town on explaining all your different ideas and opinions in the piece about one topic. And so I think that people need to see that there are different ways of doing things. And so not only does it come from the what your objective is, and so what you're doing is based on what you want to achieve. But also we need to remember our audience and what they want to consume. How do they want to consume? People don't read as much as they did once upon a time. They scan more, so that would indicate that carousels or document posts with the slideshows are a really good way to be able to get that information across to people in short, sharp sentences and make it visual at the same time. Lots of people are liking to watch video, so make sure that you add video into your content too. And I am a great fan of long form content, that's articles and newsletters, for those pieces that have got more guts to them, that do carry more information and that more thought leadership. So I think it's worthwhile remembering that there are different formats for different situations. What would I do with sales? Well, I try to meld any sales messages into my content, because my experience is that anytime I put up a sales post, it just dies. I might get 100 views on a post about my services. And if I'm doing something that has information in it that people want to learn, I would get an extra 0 on that, hopefully. So it's really important to remember that the sales posts are not being read on their own, because there's already a lot of commercial content in our news feeds and nobody wants another piece. So if you're going to do that, add a sales message, add it as a footer at the end. So put a few emojis, and underneath it, buy my, visit my, go to my, try my, whatever your call to action is at the end, put it in a footer underneath. And I always like to align that with something that I can offer, a service, something that I can do, that I am making available to people. So it might be, if you want to build connections, then go here. And it depends on what it is that the post is about, what the footer is going to contain. But I've had my AI create a whole page of call to actions for me that I can add at the end. And anytime I'm repurposing content, like this live, for example, it will say to me when it's repurposing it, which call to actions would you like on the end of these posts, Lynnaire? Well, it doesn't ever use my name, which I think is a bit unfriendly, but I'll get it trained eventually. And so I will say, okay, well, this is the one that's relevant, and I'll pop it in. So I think those footers that you can see on posts that tend to send people to somewhere, or make them want to get in touch with you or have a chat, whatever it might be, those are the things, the places to put your sales message, not in the post itself.
Got it. I was trying the thought leader article route, and what I found
You've done
was
some great ones, by the way. I really like reading your articles. You're a great writer.
I appreciate that. But the ones related to business don't get as much attention as the ones that are personal to me.
Yes. Back to storytelling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm always conflicted about what to write about, because there's a part of me that wants to write about customer service and how I built this and did this, and no one cares. and there's
right. I'm sorry to say
they don't care. And there's two sides to that story. I don't like being that person that's always trying to promote myself. And so I think that there's, believe it or not, people, even in the cyber sphere, people can detect authenticity. Yes. And sometimes when you're trying to promote yourself, it comes off as inorganic, if that's a word. But when you talk about something like, I live in Southern Florida, my article today was outside of my article about LYNNAIRE. It was about the dismantling of our weather service here in America, and the tragedy in Texas, and how frightened I am because I live near the coast. So, I mean, that's getting views. But when I write about how to build a better call center, it's like, next. I'm like, oh.
You're absolutely right. People respond really well to personal posts and personal stories. Absolutely get that. But there's a whole other audience out there that most of us tend to forget. We concentrate, Bill, I think, on the people who are liking and commenting on our posts, right? But there's a huge number of people out there that we in the industry call lurkers, who are the people that read your content. Yeah, but you never know. And they don't respond. They never get in touch with you. They don't do anything. They just sit there and consume it until such time as you suddenly get a message from them that says, I've been following you and your content for 3 years and now I'm ready to do business. And you go, who on earth are you? And why have I never heard of you before? And that's why, because they just don't respond. That's not their thing. They just like to consume. So we need to remember that there are that's hidden audience as well.
Yeah. That actually happened to me once, and it was a recruiter that said, "Hey, I'd love to get you on board," and then he got fired.
Oh. Okay.
just as I was like in the in that like in the round. It's not funny that he got fired, but I have to laugh that I'm still unemployed. I have to ask you this question. So what's the one underrated LinkedIn feature that more people should be using right now, but they aren't?
Commenting on posts. It's the thing. And it does a number of jobs for you if you are doing it well. Now, when I say commenting, I'm talking about comments that add value, that are almost mini posts on their own. I'm not talking about comments that say, thanks for sharing, or great post, or love this. Those are no use to anybody. You are not doing yourself any favors by using those kinds of comments. Yes, I know it's quick and easy, but LinkedIn is not quick. It is not easy. So think through what it is that you want to say in relation to the post that you are commenting on. So you might decide that you want to share your opinion or your idea. You might ask a question and explain the context of that. But whatever you are doing, make sure you're adding value to the post itself. Because if you do that, people will notice you. And don't forget, anytime you put a comment on somebody's post, your name appears, your photo appears, part of your headline appears. And so if people notice that, then they might go to your profile, check you out, decide they want to know a bit more about you, connect with you, follow you, and all of a sudden you've got an opportunity to build a professional relationship with them. And so I think that where people are going wrong with this is not realizing that this is the new form of posting. And they are treating it just as they've always treated it, by writing a few lines, forgetting about it, and moving on. Now, if an author of a post spots your really nicely worded comment, they're going to reply. Well, hopefully they'll reply anyway, but they're going to reply, and you can then, if the conversation warrants it, have you have a discussion, have a side discussion, if you like, about this particular aspect of it, and ideally other people will join in. Now, that's not a very easy thing to have happen, and it does take time for that to build. I think it's only in its early stages. This is just something that came out in terms of being noticed a few months ago, and part of it is because we can now see how many views our comments have had. So we've always been able to see the number of views on our posts, but now we can also see it on our comments. And that is a really interesting thing to go back and have a look at. So if you go to the activity section of your profile and click on comments, you'll be able to see all the comments that you've made recently. And that will then take you back to the post, and you can have a look and see how many views your comments have had. And if your comments have had quite a number of views consistently on one person's post, because we have favorites, we always tend to comment on the same person's post if we really like their stuff. And so if you go back and you see you've got high view numbers on comments on Bill's posts, then you want to go back and do some more. But that also means that if you're not connected to Bill, then Bill, you can reach out to Bill and say, hey, I really enjoyed your latest post about X, Y, and Z, and our discussion about it in the comments. And instantly, Bill, you know what's going on. You've got a point of reference and you'll accept the invite to connect. And from there, you can take it in all kinds of directions. So, for example, you as a podcaster might see the person as someone you want to have on your show. And if you are someone like me, I'd be potentially doing the same, or asking to have some kind of collaboration, maybe have a call, have a chat, or to be able to do something else entirely. But I do think that is something that people have not really yet understood. And this is only a change in focus this year, that we need to be putting more time into engagement than we did on our posts. So you can easily cut back the number of posts you're doing. Do not stop, but cut them back and put the extra time into commenting on other people's posts.
So that's really interesting. I think I told you this before, we discussed it before, but I never see when someone comments on my post.
Why not?
I can go back and look at the post, but there's a section where, you get notifications. I don't get those notifications, and I have notifications on for everything.
Don't rely on notifications is the short answer, Bill.
Okay.
The best thing to do is to go back to the post itself, which you can do from your activity section, if that's the best way. Right. I don't do it that way, but there's a number of ways you can do it. Go back to each post and make sure that you are responding to those comments, because as an author of a post or an article, in your case a lot of the time, then people want to feel that the effort they've made in commenting is reciprocated by you at least noticing the comment, and at the very least saying thank you for writing it or for sharing it, or hopefully saying something else about it. And both of those actions are going to mean both of your posts are going to get more visibility, because activity begets activity, right? And so if somebody's commenting on your post, then more people are going to see them, and more people are going to see their own posts, and they will get better results on their own posts. So it's a very reciprocal thing. It's not just to do it for you if it's your post I'm commenting on. It's, in fact, I'm doing it for me, because my posts are going to get more comments on it and higher views, because I have made the effort to comment on your post and on a number of other people's. You need to be commenting about 10 times as often as you are posting. So for one post, 10 comments, and that's still probably not enough to be able to make this work really well for you.
So this is very enlightening, and I have a couple of things that come up from that. So there's this one guy on LinkedIn. His name is John Cobb, JONCOBB, and whenever I have commented on anything that he's done, within like 5 minutes, he'll send a reply, even if it's a fist bump. And I'm trying to figure out how, because he has 90,000 followers. Like, how does he know? Like, I can't keep up with my little bitty number. He's like doing really well. How does he know that I commented? And how does he respond so quickly?
He's probably keeping an eye on the post just to check, would be my guess. He or a team member, because some people have team members, right? They help them with this when you get to that kind of a volume. And
right.
if you've got 90,000 followers and you're posting every day of the week, you can imagine what the workload of that is, Bill, trying to keep up with all of those comments. But when and the obligation is, as the author, to do that. Otherwise, you will really annoy people. They'll be indignant about the fact that you have ignored them effectively, if that's how they see what's going on. And so it's entirely likely he has help, but he is just looking at the post, refreshing it on a regular basis, making sure that he's seeing the most recent comments at the top so that he can then respond. But the fact that he's that you're getting a fist bump tells me that he probably doesn't have the time to be writing full comments.
He's replied to some of them.
Okay, cool.
Like
good.
A little note. But I always thought maybe he has alerts or something that I'm not getting.
No, but he shouldn't be. But he also could be using automation of some kind, which I would just like to put on the record here is illegal on LinkedIn. It's against their terms and services. And if they see you doing it, they will throw you into jail. So you do not want to be seen to be using automation. It's more likely that he's got a team member helping him.
Got it. So you also said that every time you make a comment, there are a few things that show up. One is your photo, one is your about me, and then your
your headline. So your photo, your headline. One more thing. No, your name. Your name, Bill. Of course, it's your name. Your name, your photo, and the first few words of your headline are the three things that sit at the top of your comment. Yes.
So I'm a person that doesn't like taking photos. And I have one good photo that I like, but it's a side view, and it's me holding a mic. I'm literally it's at my daughter's wedding, but I'm like, well, I could actually be like a speaker. No one knows. Are we still doing that inauthentic? I'm in a blazer in front of a bookshelf, hair cropped a certain way type of photo. Or are we doing more authentic? And I know you're going to tell me that I should have a front-facing photo. If I find a good one, I will do that. But what's the norm?
The norm is still the jacketed photo in front of a bookcase. Well, no bookcase really is what you want. You want no background at all, or a very plain one. So, for example, I wouldn't be taking a photo of me sitting here like this and using it. But you can just have canvas, strip out the background, and you're just left with the image of you, which is what I've got on my profile. And it's a still from a video. It's really simple. It's really easy. Now, Bill, you are on video all day, every day, as far as I can tell. There is no excuse for you not having a good photo of yourself. And you look amazing with your headphones and your glasses and the microphone in front of you. And that tells everybody everything they need to know about you, that currently you are doing a lot of podcasting work. It's not all you do, but it's something that you do. And so that gives you an edge, whereas a photo of you side on at your daughter's wedding makes people think that you're a speaker, which is not actually what you're doing. You're doing, and so that's might be putting a whole load of people off because they think that's what you do, keynote speaking. Well, I'm not in the market for a keynote speaker, so I'll just move on. But if they see you like you are sitting there right now, but with a smile on your face, then there's no reason why they wouldn't be thinking this is somebody I really want to connect with, because he's doing these really cool podcasts all the time and lives on YouTube and LinkedIn that might have some opportunities for me. And I was talking to somebody the other day who I did some podcasts with late last year, the beginning of this year, and he has now got people coming to him asking to be on his show and offering money. So it's possible to build a business on the back of this. Podcasting is huge. And there's no reason why, if you are showing people that that's what you do in your profile photo, that people won't suddenly go, oh, that's interesting. Bill's doing that now. So I think you're missing the trick there, Bill.
Well, okay. So I could do this.
Yeah.
Like I can do this, but the one, the side shoulder looking, like a mannequin, that's not me. So and I've met people who have those professional photos and they look nothing like it. It doesn't represent it doesn't represent their personality. It's so corporate that it makes you look unapproachable to me.
No, I absolutely get you. And you're right. No, you're right. It doesn't look like you. And we're in an age where authenticity is really important. And I'll make a confession here. For the last few years, I've used photos, and particularly my profile photo, that were taken by a professional photographer and took 6 people to make me look as good as those photos. Now, I kid you not. And I used those for several years until the end of last year. I went, But I'm talking about authenticity on LinkedIn. And this isn't me. People, when they see me on my live events, they're going to go, well, that doesn't match what's in the photo. And so I've stopped using them. They've all gone. And now I'm using photos that really do look like me. I don't think it's much of an improvement, Bill, but there you go. You have to work with what you've got, don't you? But the authenticity, I think, is the most important thing. And so you showing up as you, like you are at the moment, I think just screams authenticity, because that's what you're doing right now. And I don't think you should be afraid of changing your photo. Some people change them on a regular basis. So again, it comes back to your objective on LinkedIn. If you're in a corporate job and you want to move up the career ladder, then those corporate profile photos are really important. But that's not quite what you're wanting to do, or not what you're currently doing. And so I think that something that is much more you is a really good idea.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. So when we're talking about authenticity.
Look at Kenneth.
What?
No boasting there, Kenneth.
I love Kenneth. We talked a lot about authenticity. So
Yeah.
what's the difference between being authentic and being unfiltered, especially when you're unemployed?
Right. I think that for most of us, we have an innate knowledge of when we are going too far, when we're criticizing, putting people down, making judgments, not saying things saying things that we wouldn't say to somebody in person. That to me is unfiltered and unnecessary. And the question becomes then, do you want people to see you as that kind of person who is always on a downer, always on a crusade of some kind? Who's also always being negative and judgmental, and most of us don't. But I think what's happened is that because we're doing this online and not in front of people directly and talking directly to people, we're saying things about others that we wouldn't say to them in person, because we've got this veneer of being online, that one step removed, if you like. And I think that being unfiltered is a very bad thing on LinkedIn, that we can be authentic, but temper it and make sure that we are saying things that we would want our grandmothers to see or to read, right? And I don't see that there is any conflict there between the two. Being authentic is more, in my view, about your personality and how you come across your values and what you share with people, whereas being unfiltered is saying those things that you really should just have kept in your head.
It's very interesting because we are in, so I'm unemployed, say it again. We are in times that are very challenging to be quiet during. And I think you've even commented on some of them, but I have been very transparent on my disappointment. That's the easiest way to say it.
Yes.
In how the direction that we're heading here in our country. And sometimes I wonder, we never know who that hiring manager is. Is that putting other people off? And then, hold on. The second part is, would I want to work for that person? So it kind of goes, it kind of goes, am I weeding people out? Because corporate culture, fit, how you fit with an organization is just as important. And I can temporarily be someone other than Bill, but permanently I can't. So is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do I keep it to myself?
Well, first of all, I think you're being very brave. You're bravely speaking out about things that are going on at the moment that are clearly disappointing a lot of people. And maybe more than that, dismaying a lot of people and distressing a lot of people. Even down here in New Zealand, we're hearing about some of those things. And my view is the people who are speaking out against some of these changes are courageous, and you are willing to take a risk about standing with your head above the parapet. And I think, as I say, that's extremely brave. It also means that you've answered your own question, because yes, it does weed out those hiring managers, recruiters, and companies whose values you may not have in common with.
Right.
And it's fair to say, I think that companies are probably reevaluating at the moment where they stand on a lot of issues that have come to the forefront this year. And we need to remember that the change has only just started, and there will be more changes and more upheaval, and it's very difficult to get any kind of a handle on a trend that may change on a whim tomorrow, or even perhaps today. So I think things are very up in the air, but I also believe very strongly that bad things happen, Bill, when people do not speak up.
Yes.
And again, I applaud your bravery in speaking up while you can. When you join a company, you may not be able to say the things that you are saying right now. So in my view, take the opportunity while you can, and you may well find that you come to the attention of someone who goes, now that's a man who has the courage of his convictions. We need him in our organization.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. America, if you can kind of pass me on to somebody, that'll be great. What signals does LinkedIn's algorithm prioritize right now? You're going to say comments.
Yes and no. So when you say the algorithm, there's a lot of different algorithms doing different things. Kevin Turner says 19. This is a bit confusing, isn't it? And I don't even know what they all do, to be fair. But if you're talking about the overall algorithm that governs what we see in our feed and how well our posts are doing, it has emerged just in the last couple of weeks that videos are not getting the same degree of attention from the algorithm that they were. Now, when a new feature like videos arise on LinkedIn, they often give it a wee algorithmic nudge. In other words, they will artificially boost those posts that have got the videos in them that they think are worth it. And so that has been going on for a bit of time now. But there is a school of thought that says that is being pulled back, and that videos are not now getting the attention that they once were. So if that is the case, then it comes back to each of us trying to find out which kind of format does well for us and for our audience, and which don't. For example, for me, polls don't do terribly well. For other people, though, I know that's all they post, and they do extremely well.
They used to. About 2 years ago, I would say.
Yeah.
My polls would just jump up, especially if it was controversial.
Ah, well, there you go. You see, anything that you do at controversial is more likely these days to still get a bit of attention. But LinkedIn is not really very keen on those sorts of things, because it sees it as artificial, or artificially trying to boost the virality of your post, the number of people who see it. And so they have said that they are responding to, or boosting, or giving attention to posts that share information and knowledge and all those kind of positive things. But I'm not really seeing that at the expense of personal posts. Whenever somebody puts up a personal post that has got something in it that is really heart-wrenching, those kind of posts do really well. And you can't seem to get away from that, because no matter what the algorithm says, people respond as humans, and we all respond to things emotionally. Excuse me. And so I think it's important to keep in mind the different aspects, whether it's controversial, the different kind of post, the topic, and also when it's been posted. So if you're posting about something that's happening in the news at the moment, for example, if you were talking about what's going on in Texas right now, then your post might do really well. because it's topical. People are wanting to read about it and know more, learn more about it. And so I think that that is something that people can bear in mind. I do think it's important, though, not to take advantage of crises where lives are being
Absolutely
lost
not.
for the sake of it. I don't think that's really a good thing. But if there is business news, for example, I think the tariffs are fair game. In terms of people writing about business, I don't think anybody should shy away from that if that's something that they've got strong opinions about and they want to share the information. But there's a difference too between sharing information, reporting what's going on in the news through your own particular lens, and commenting on it from your own experience and knowledge and saying, you know, what you really think about it. So there are two ways, I think, of being able to cover those kinds of things. But, you know, Bill, over a period of time, people do get to learn what it is that works really well for them. And, you know, my experience is a bit different because I like to try a whole bunch of different things and to be the person that other people look to for finding out what different kinds of formats there are. So what my objective is to have as many different formats out there at any one time as is possible. But that's not the experience of most people, which should be to find the kinds of posts that are doing best and then make sure that those are the ones that they are using most regularly.
Okay. Makes sense. Here's my final question, because we're at that 1 hour mark.
I don't believe that you've got a final question for me.
So not everyone has the time that we do to go on LinkedIn, do a podcast. So if someone has 15 minutes a day to invest in LinkedIn, what's the absolute smartest use of that time as a candidate?
As a candidate, reach out to connect to some new people that might be helpful for you to find a new job. Reach out with a personalized message. Follow up your messaging. Don't connect and ghost. Make sure that you are reaching out, connecting, following up, starting a conversation. And the third thing is to make sure that you are commenting on other people's posts. Now, it's quite hard to find really good posts to comment on, so you're going to be struggling to do that. But 15 minutes a day will allow you to do all of that. But Bill, I'm assuming that this is a person who has got a really good, compelling LinkedIn profile, because if you don't start with that, if that's not in place and you're not using all of the features really well and telling your story well on your profile, then none of that is going to make a difference. You need to start with your profile.
Okay. So what I just heard was spend an hour, 2 hours on your profile, and then you can spend the 15 minutes a day.
That's a really good way to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So get everything in order, get it straight, and manipulate it. You know, change the about me section every so often. Take a look at it. Make sure it really does reflect who you are in that moment, because a lot of us created our about me section a year ago.
Yes.
And do we still like it? It felt good in the moment, but is it still resonating with you? And if it does, great. But if it doesn't, change it. LYNNAIRE Johnston is phenomenal. LINKABILITY.BIZ is the place to be. I would get in contact with her immediately. If you guys have any question, you are a coach. Help me with that.
Yeah, sure. Coach and a strategist, an author, a content creator, founder of the LINKABILITY.BIZ members community. Oh, I'm a podcast guest too. Look at me. So I do essentially what I do, Bill, is I talk nonstop about LinkedIn. That's it in a nutshell.
It would have been easier to ask you what you don't do.
Yeah, it would have been. I do company pages as well. So, yeah.
She is wonderful. I love talking to LYNNAIRE whenever I can. And I thank you for coming on. I thank the guest for listening. And LYNNAIRE, any final thoughts?
Oh, please, can we do this again? Bill, this is the 4th time we've been in a room together, and every time we have so much fun. We talk about all kinds of interesting things, and I get to nag you about your profile and what you're doing on LinkedIn. But I also want to say this. Thank you for being such a great contributor to our Linkability community. You are amazing, and we really love having you. So thank you so much for being part of that. And anybody else can check it out as well and see what Bill's doing. But I think you're doing amazing work. So keep up the great work and take that profile photo, Bill.
I got you. Everyone, thank you so much. We are ending. LYNNAIRE, can you hang around for a minute? All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I'll be right back, okay?
We're still live, Bill.
Are we? All right. Bye. I'll be back.